I've been up since 4 o'clock this morning. I fish. It's not what I do, it's who I am. Don't take this from me. Don't do it. I won't let you.
I have done everything asked of me to create a sustainable business in fishery, and you are rushing to shut it all down.
We are in a position of elimination.
This is going to affect my house significantly.
The idea that no whale can die naturally, how is that possible? This is fixed.
I go to bed every single night worrying, am I going to be able to next season, because I'm a mother and a military wife, am I going to be able to do that next year? Is that the last time I just hauled my trap?
This is what I want to do for the rest of my life, but these regulations are going to make that impossible.
We've been steamrolled in this process. It's not right.
Why aren't you using any of our data before you make huge changes to a sustainable and successful industry?
You should be partnering with the lobstermen, who are the eyes, ears, and heart of the ocean and all the creatures within it. We are not the enemy, we are part of the solution.
All the pictures we've seen tonight, it's big rope. There's no breakaways, and I'll tell you where that rope is. It's in Canada, and it's in Area 3.
I do not want to have to look into my 12-year-old daughter's eyes and tell her that lobster fishing is not in her future. Having to choose between electricity, heat, food, a vehicle payment, the mortgage, insurance, or birthdays for my 3 children is not an option. You must have a conscience. You must look further into all of the evidence that you know is there. As a mother, as a wife, I beg you to please see this from every angle. Fishermen are not ignorant. Whales are the scapegoat for offshore windmills to be brought in. If you think your whales are endangered now, just wait.
I know how much time and effort I've put into my life and lost as a family man for running up and down the East Coast to all these meetings, and you slapped me in the face.
You have failed us as a fisheries service, and you have failed to do the right thing for the entire state of Maine.
There's so much more about what this industry means to this state.
I drove down today because I wanted to look the people in the eye who are threatening my livelihood and threatening the 5,000 brothers and sisters I have out there on the sea. So I hope tonight, when you go to bed, you take all of our faces, and I hope they haunt your dreams, because I can't sleep at night, so I hope you can't too.
And you came out here from where?
We came from Beals. How long did it take us? 4 hours.
4 hours.
What are you doing?
4 hours.
I heard so many people say, I don't know, is this worth doing? I don't know, is this worth coming to this meeting? Because I know they've already got their minds made up. Well, I know they've already got their minds made up, but I'm here because I want them to know that this isn't right. This is important for me. I mean, this is what I do for a living, but most importantly, I mean, I want these guys to be able to do it.
Ever since my kids were little, they've played with boats. They didn't play with cars. They didn't really play with trains. They didn't play with tools nearly as much as they wanted to play with a boat. And it just seems wrong that somebody could really take that chance away. You know, fishermen have done everything that they've been asked to do. They are good stewards. I mean, it's not just a tradition, and it's not just part of the state economy. You're talking about the backbone of the entire coastline. I mean, the businesses that operate in each town would not exist if it wasn't, like in our town, especially in Jonesport and Beals. I mean, 75% of the people that work there are working on the water.
And there's so many people that's got little kids like myself. I mean, we're not the only 9th generation family on this coast. There's many of them. I mean, there's people right now that are about to graduate high school that want to go fishing, and they're not going to have that chance. I didn't even think it was going to be possible to be this point. You know, they always said that you needed something to fall back on when I was growing up. I didn't listen. I knew in my heart that was the one thing I wanted to do, and I have always been proud that that's what I stuck with. And to think that my kids are not even gonna have that opportunity is just heartbreaking.
So I'm a veterinarian, and I don't think I would support lobstering if I thought it was inhumane or unethical. I mean, what I see when we go out on the boat with my husband, or when I fished lobster traps when I was a student, everybody was trying to take care of the ocean. From an ethical standpoint, that's important to me, and I think fishermen have done everything that was asked. They've really gone above and beyond. I mean, the science doesn't even really support the stringent guidelines that they're trying to develop.
It's just sad. It's really sad to think that big corporate money is gonna just destroy every coastal community.
It's just really not about saving whales. I mean, what they're asking us to do is not doing any good. It's basically utilizing resources that we don't have and sort of trying to really force people to not want to do it because they don't want us there. They're trying to make room for something bigger and better, and it's all about money. It's all about money, and for people who support green energy, I mean, there's nothing green about a wind farm in the middle of the ocean.
I think they're all in cahoots. They want to have complete control. This is wrong. I mean, this is every bit wrong. I hope they burn in hell for this right here, because they don't care about families like we do. I mean, this whole coast of Maine is made up of fishing families and communities that we're there for each other. We don't bother anyone, you know. We're not out there destroying whales, you know what I mean? This isn't what we're doing. We're the best stewards of the ocean. We're not doing anything wrong. We're not harming anything. There's gonna be a lot of people that's gonna hurt, not just us. I mean, we're hurting. I don't even know what to do. I'm beside myself, because this is the only thing I want to do. This is what I want these guys to at least have an opportunity to try it.
You as an industry are here tonight to be heard. Your role is to express the views in the face of the many emotions that you are feeling. I've talked to many fishermen in this room and listened to how a 90% risk reduction threatens your livelihood, threatens your family, and your communities. The uncertainty that you face is overwhelming, and I've heard that firsthand. Tonight, you need to express that to the National Marine Fisheries Service. Tonight, you're being asked by NMFS to do the impossible. But tonight, I ask you to please clearly lay out the impacts to you and your business and to your family, as well as ideas that the National Marine Fisheries Service, can consider. This is very important that your voice is heard tonight, because your thoughts and ideas will not be considered if you do not put them on the table in this scoping meeting. So I ask you to please speak up. Also ask you to please show the professionalism that exists within this industry in the face of this uncertainty and in the face of this emotion. Speak up, do so clearly, concisely, and politely in the face of the emotions that you are feeling. The fate of this industry is being dealt with by a single judge in Washington, D.C. right now, and the timing of the speed of which rules come is in one individual's hands. Tonight, the National Marine Fisheries Service is here because of the time frames that a judge is imposing. 90% is changed beyond what we've ever thought would be possible. We thought we'd be here in 10 years talking about this, but 10 years was a long time frame. That's not the case now. So please, again, I would ask you to be kind and courteous, clearly lay out these issues. Your voice is important. It must be heard. So with that, I'm going to turn the podium over to Janet Coit, the Assistant Administrator.
Thank you, Pat. Good evening, everyone. I appreciate you all being here today for this scoping meeting. I know many of you drove a significant distance after a hard day of work. I want to recognize Governor Mills, Senator Collins, Representative Pingree, Representative Golden. Thank you for being here. I want to start by just saying I have great respect for the lobstermen and the fishermen and the fisherwomen who risk your lives at sea and who are challenged with multiple sets of changing regulations and who have great appreciation for whales and the ocean. As Pat mentioned, I'm the Assistant Administrator for NOAA Fisheries, so the head of the National Marine Fisheries Service. And my agency is responsible for upholding and implementing the federal environmental laws that are enacted to protect whales and marine mammals. This forum is our opportunity to hear from you and to share your input and your ideas with me and with the NOAA Fisheries team who are here. We are charged with getting to a 90% reduction in risk to North Atlantic right whales. That's our mandate under the Marine Mammal Protection Act. This is very, very challenging. This is a very challenging assignment, and it's never been more challenging than it is at this moment.
Hello, I'm Bob Faulkingham. Ma'am, I apologize, but I can't help but feel like we were hoodwinked tonight. We were given 3 hours for us to speak, and half of that time was given to the politicians to do campaign speeches. This is my family. They would be here today if you hadn't held one meeting 3.5 hours from where we live. Some people have pointed to the judge, but we're here today because your agency fought against the Maine lawsuit on the biological opinion and won that lawsuit. Know your enemies. Every time new rules have been proposed on us, we've been told by our Department of Marine Resources to accept it or we risk being shut down. If we just accept one more rule, one set of regulations, they will leave us alone. So no matter what restrictions or goals we're given, we met them. We have complied 100% of the time with every restriction that has been imposed on us. But here you are now telling us to accept a 90% reduction. Here we are again begging unelected bureaucrats to grant us mercy and allow us the privilege of earning a living and feeding our families. I'm disgusted, honestly, to have to stand here before you and beg you to allow me to go lobstering. When these regulations started in 1997, we were told there were 225 North Atlantic right whales. Since that time, that number has shrunk to as low as 500. Yes, I'm being facetious. Your own agency discontinued aerial whale spotting because it was a waste of fuel. The disentanglement team was disbanded because there were no entanglements. Sonar and visual sightings are nearly non-existent in Maine waters. We do, however, have a large population of humpback whales that interact on the outside boundaries of our fishery and have no trouble with those whales. This should be evidence that our gear is whale safe, but this point is never mentioned by regulators or referenced by scientific data.
Thank you for coming, NOAA officials. The one thing I would like to bring up is that all these charts and the things that you present are all computer generated, and I think it would do us all a great service if someone would actually sit down with pen and paper and pencil and generate some of these charts without algorithms and computer generated assistance, because I think if you get back to the basics of it, none of this will make sense. So short and sweet.
I'm more than concerned, to say the least, about the impact of what is coming about right now for this industry. The cost of maintaining our property is significant, and we're relying heavily on our wages and everything to keep it running. So now for the future generations, like my son, my nephews, my daughter, that all have this opportunity that I was fortunate to be blessed with, have to make a decision in their life at such a young age. Continue on doing something they love, or finding something else to do while they're young, because for a lot of us, if you're not, we're not gonna have that choice. We're doing what we're doing, and that's how we're gonna die. Eventually, this is gonna lead to the end of what my family has worked so hard before me to protect, and makes it really scary to even think about. I don't know what the best solution is, but I think there are a couple things you could look into. One being more emphasis could be placed on finding out exactly how many lines are in the water. You know, how many unused tags are there out in people's houses that never get clipped into the traps every year? You know, what about like an exemption area for the inshore fishermen that are around the rocks? You know, the kids that are fishing 15 to 40 feet of water, you know, that they're never gonna see a whale. I mean, I've never seen a whale, and I fished a lot further out than that. Thank you for your time, and hope it made some sense.
Hello, my name is April Chadbourne. My husband Ronnie and I are the owners of CBS Lobster in Portland. We started our company 32 years ago, and my husband has been in the business for over 40 years. We have seen so much take place on the waterfront in Portland. I have over 60 fishermen that sell lobsters or purchase bait from our company. My son Patrick has worked alongside of us for 25 years. The funny thing is, he's only 30. I have a bunch of fishermen that I truly consider family, and I personally know their wives, their kids, and even their dogs. I've seen kids starting to fish with their grandparents and their parents, and I've seen these kids grow up, and I've seen these kids put themselves through college. It's hard to understand the decision that has been made with zero evidence regarding right whales. There hasn't been an incident regarding the right whales since 2004, and it didn't die. Thank God. I've spoken to many lobstermen regarding these issues, and in all honesty, many of them have never seen a right whale. The lobstermen and women care about what's happening in these waters. I was also told that I didn't go to college, I don't have the smarts per se. But I'm looking at these scientists and saying, your assumption. I'm sorry, where's the facts? You know, we need the facts. It's hard to believe that our governmental agencies are not doing more in regards to our industry and allowing so many to attack what we love most. So many organizations that are going to great lengths to eliminate our industry and have stepped in an attempt to ruin the lives of hundreds of thousands of men and women in this industry. How can one judge make a decision that's going to affect so many people's lives? The President of the United States can't even do that. He has powers that go through. You're just going to put us all out of business. With a 90% reduction, I don't think a lot of lobstermen will be able to survive. I don't. Why is this moving so fast? We have 0 that are caught, 0 that are tangled. Why all of a sudden do we have until October 11th? Why?
Trying to get Maine's lobster fishermen to agree on anything is almost impossible because we're independent businesses who all have a different approach in how we run our business. There are 2 things that we can all agree on. 1, the lobster price is never high enough. And 2, there are no right whales in the Gulf of Maine. Yet, here we are, gathered here, fighting for our industry, trying to tell the federal government that we are not the problem. The government, along with its environmental groups, have come up with ridiculous statements about the right whale. Stuff like the north and south right whale don't interact. Like there's an invisible fence that they can't cross, you know. Other things like the cryptic mortality rule. If you find 1 dead whale, you can assume that 3 more are dead as well, and they go on the deceased list without ever seeing them. What about the whales you think are dead, and then they show up 5 years later? Those go back on the alive list. So what about the 3 suspected dead whales? Do they go back on the list? I highly doubt it. How about the statement that 90% of right whales have been entangled? How about the ones that have been run over by a ship and have propeller marks up their back? Oh yeah, that's right, we forgot. Big Oil donates to the environmental groups. We don't have to worry about that. I have 2 sons in high school that fish in the summer. They have 1,700-pound links on all their stuff. Stuff in 10 feet of water. 10 feet of water, and they got 1,700-pound weak links on a single trap. Makes a lot of sense. You actually think a whale is going to swim up in the bay in 10 feet of water and one 1,700-pound link on one trap. The link wouldn't even break if it got caught up in it. It'd just be towing the trap around. But I tell you, if a whale gets up in 10 feet of water, he's got a lot more problems than looking out for a trap. So you're telling my two sons there is zero chance that they will have the opportunity to lobster fish like their grandfather and great-grandfather. And you're telling me the same damn thing. What am I going to do? Where am I going to find work? It won't be in Maine, that's for sure, unless it's probably to scrub some rich vacationer's toilet. I say again, what you are doing is ridiculous. Crippling an industry, a heritage, an entire state because rich environmentalists paid off a judge to side with them so the Gulf of Maine can be plugged full of windmills that will not work. Windmills that will fall apart. Windmills that will fall apart in its rugged waters. Letting a bunch of rich environmentalists from California control the narrative of what happens to the state of Maine is an absolute failure of the National Marine Fisheries Service, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration as well. I repeat, you have failed us as a fisheries service, and you have failed to do the right thing for the entire state of Maine.
Hello and good evening. I'm Renee Jordan-Chandler. Let me take you to a morning on the water for a Maine lobster fisherman. You're sailing to your first string of traps as the sun is rising, painting the most beautiful colors you have ever seen. The salty sun is filling the air as it sprays by your washboard. Your engine hums in the background as you wave to the boats you pass. Excitement with the anticipation of the day's catch and the hopes of returning safely to your harbor at the end of the day is on your mind. Sounds picture perfect, right? For all of us, it's what we love. It's why we work so hard complying with ever-changing regulations, no matter the cost, to keep the dreams alive for generations to come. I say this speaking as someone who can trace their heritage back to seafarers before the American Revolutionary War. We treat the ocean with great respect, and in return, it provides our livelihood. Now imagine starting the year at an already record low price for your catch. So many boats couldn't afford to take a stern man, making an already dangerous job much more risky. Then they're faced with a 90% reduction to their already highly regulated industry after full compliance and without factual scientific proof of reasoning. So I want to take a moment and go directly to the NOAA website and read a few pieces that I feel are crucial in getting the truth out. And I quote, U.S. wild-caught American lobster is a smart seafood choice because it is sustainably managed and responsibly harvested under U.S. regulations. Implementing regulations are found at 50 CFR Part 697, Subpart A and B. Most U.S. harvest is caught in inshore waters. There is a reason we associate Maine with lobsters. The state has led American lobster landings for over 3 decades. 93% of the coast-wide landings come from the Gulf of Maine. So, tell me that Maine would sustain the economic impact of crippling the lobster fishing industry. When you push out 2/3 or even all of the fishermen, they lose their businesses, and then because they've lost their businesses, they cannot afford to pay their bills, so they lose their homes and can't afford to feed their families. Why? A lot of these men and women do not have a backup plan. They don't have a college degree to fall back on. They came out of high school straight onto the water, and everything they have is in their businesses. They can't just start over. Now the lobster fishermen are being targeted, but there's more to this story. Whales are not all that this is, and we know that. Fishermen are not ignorant. Whales are the scapegoat for offshore windmills to be brought in. If you think your whales are endangered now, just wait. I do not want to have to look into my 12-year-old daughter's eyes and tell her that lobster fishing is not in her future. Having to choose between electricity, heat, food, a vehicle payment, the mortgage, insurance, or birthdays for my 3 children is not an option. You must have a conscience. You must look further into all of the evidence that you know is there. Just as I have a job to do to protect my heritage and my family, you have a job to do as well. You know there are more circumstances that are affecting the population of these whales than the lobster fishermen. Making decisions that will shatter their very being is not feasible. Entire communities will go under. The economy of an entire state will fold. You must see the bigger picture. As a mother, as a wife, I beg you to please see this from every angle. Make sure when you lay your heads down at night, you don't see the faces of the families that you will make homeless, or the children that you will make starve. This is so much bigger than making rules. This is real people's lives at stake. Save Maine. Thank you.
I've always appreciated what the Maine Department of Marine Resources has done to work with the fishermen. The science staff reaches out regularly, yearly for a big meeting, but sometimes monthly for kind of questions. And the type of questions they ask is, we're seeing this in our science, are you guys seeing this on the water? That's collaboration. What I'm seeing from my short time now on the take reduction team, my first meeting was in the May meetings, so I've been through the May and the September round. It's not collaboration. I'm sorry. It's maybe it was to start with at the beginning, but it's not anymore. They're asking for a consensus agreement on a set of packages, scenarios that were not on these slides tonight. I saw them at the September take reduction team, and I'm honestly, guys, I lost sleep. I sleep pretty good. I sleep fine through a lot of things, but when I saw those slides, it hurt. This is our industry, and those slides, those packages of scenarios put us out. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. So they're asking for a consensus agreement at the November meeting. There's no way. It's not happening. We've been steamrolled in this process. It's not right. I really implore you to cancel the set of November meetings and take into consideration all of the things that you've heard at the online scoping session, this scoping session, the fact that the data is being used incorrectly. You need to kind of recalibrate here. We need time to reach out to industry. You need to look at what we've done in phase one as being really much more effective than we're being given credit for. Those breakaways that we have now that alone simply reduces the risk by so much. There's not much more we need to do. So I really implore you to cancel the November take reduction team and go back to the drawing board. And thank you again, everybody.
Hi, my name is Jaimee Watts. I own Watts Accounting and Tax. But I also have these people as license holders. This is going to affect my house significantly. It will affect my tax business by a quarter of it, along with every other accounting firm in the state of Maine, on the coast especially. But in my household, I've got my boyfriend and his 2 kids that all are license holders. So if their income is gone and then part of mine is gone, where does that leave us? But I just wanted to tell you about the economic impact of what's going to happen. And I'm from South Thomaston, so thank you.
I am a 20-year-old lobster fisherman from Cumberland, Maine. I started lobstering when I was 8 years old, and I am now 20. I started fishing out of a 16-foot aluminum boat. Now I fish out of a 31-foot boat, and I fish 400 traps. This is what I want to do for the rest of my life, but these regulations are going to make that impossible. I have enough on my plate trying to grow my business. I do not need to be responsible for some whale that I've never seen, that nobody I know has ever seen, and that probably has never come within 100 feet of my gear. 90% risk reduction will spell the death of the industry. Period. End of story.
Good evening. My name is Dwight Carver. I'm a lifetime fisherman off of the coast of Maine in Zone A. This is my 49th year. I'm one of the most fortunate men that walks the face of the earth. I'm also a member of the take reduction team. I'm on the zone council in A District 4. I represent A District 4. And I have truly, honestly, truly tried to be decent in the meetings that we've had in Portsmouth, and the recent ones got the best of me. The recent ones where I sat behind a computer for 8 hours, and they asked me what my input might be, and I'm gonna be honest, I was so angry and hurt, I could not say anything constructive, so I declined to comment. The last 2 hours I missed because my older brother put his boat ashore in the fog, so we spent the afternoon and night trying to get his boat off the ledges. And forgive me if I'm wrong, but the lesser of the evils that we were given to look at, that we might be able to fish by, in my zone, Zone A, we were going to be shut down May, June, July, 3 of the best months out of the year. That would leave us, it would pretty much eliminate the small boat fishery, because once you start fishing in August, at best they might have 10 weeks to make a living at. 300 traps. Trap limit, to be honest, doesn't scare me that much, but to shut down the 3 months out of the year would just about destroy us completely. My grandmother always said that idle hands are the devil's workshop. During the 3-month period, if we do that, we're enhancing the possibility of more drugs and alcohol abuse, spousal abuse, because when guys are sitting around and they don't have any way to make a living, they're going to go to whatever helps hide their hurt and their desperation. And I'm trying to speak as honestly and sincerely as I can. I would hope that they would take this into consideration. A 3-month shutdown is going to lead to more drug and alcohol abuse in Zone A. I truly and honestly want to give my best that I can to the take reduction team, but we've reached a point that I just don't feel that I can be of any help, because we are in a position of elimination.
I'm here representing my husband and 4 children who are all lobstermen out of Quahog Bay, Maine. Lobstermen have complied with all the regulations put forth so far, but these proposed regulations are far overreaching and not based on solid data. You are targeting a population that is part of the solution, not the problem. If these go through, you will endanger the livelihoods of those lobstermen, bait dealers, boat mechanics, wharf owners, trap builders, and more. Also, our tourism industry. I implore you to hear the concerns that everyone has raised so far, and listen to the statistics. They don't lie. You should be partnering with the lobstermen, who are the eyes, ears, and heart of the ocean and all the creatures within it. We are not the enemy, we are part of the solution. Finally, I would implore you also to do a little environmental impact study on the lithium batteries that you're proposing in the ropeless gear. I shudder to think of the impacts of a battery going into a corrosive environment. You think that the ropes are the problem? I think the batteries are a bigger problem to all creatures.
My name is John Renwick, and I'm here representing 5 generations of lobster fishermen. I came here today to speak to you, even though with every fiber of my being, I believe that it's a waste of time and effort. If it was not a waste of time and effort, facts would matter. 18 years, no entanglements traced to Maine would matter. Science would matter. Everyone here knows that you cannot reduce risk from 0. Once again, 18 years. It ain't about whales. Our system of justice is based on equal justice under the law and equal application of the law. Where is the equal in this system? I watch the high-speed cat ferry sail by every day, and it kills whales in fact, not in theory. I watch the whale watchers from the tourist industry move at high speed to chase and harass whales. But let me remind everyone here, it ain't about whales. This body wants suggestions on reducing rail risk. Here's a few. Stop lying. Labeling Maine lobster gear after a clean record of 18 years as Category 1 is lying. Change the category. We are clearly Category 3. Use real math. 1 dead whale is 1 dead whale, not 2. NOAA's incidental death permitting of whales in lease areas is greater than all of the previous whale deaths since 2017. Where is the equal application of the law? Concentrate on the real whale killers, cruise ships and strikes, as well as permitted taking of whales, including right whales by military sonar, offshore wind, oil and gas exploration, science research, construction projects, source, fisheries, NOAA, incidental take authorizations under the Marine Mammal Protection Act. Talk about a joke. This act allows for the take of up to 20 or more right whales in a 5-year period in some lease areas. But we all know it ain't about whales. You cannot reduce risk from zero. Does everyone understand why they refuse to tag and trace the actual whales? Because a theoretical whale is much more useful when it's omnipresent in defeating and removing lobster fishing. The whales are just a tool to remove us from the ocean. The whales are a tool. NOAA is a tool. The well-intentioned ecological groups are a tool. This is nothing more than a hostile takeover of a successful owner-operated industry by multinational corporations, and that is why it ain't about whales. To the state of Maine, I say, how have you allowed a classification as bogus as Category 1 to stand for 18 years? We are the only active, sustainable fishery left in the state. The feds have destroyed and taken away all the rest. We must fight this injustice for the future of our communities, for every other job-related industry linked to lobster fishing. There is nothing left to fall back on. Our communities will be destroyed. They will become ghost towns.
I didn't prepare a speech. I'm not one for public speaking, but I drove for 4 hours with my family so that National Marine Fisheries, NOAA, might actually have something to look at. I mean, these guys, this is my livelihood. This is what they want to do. And you guys are tearing it from us. And it's heartbreaking. It's ridiculous. You've given us hoops to jump through for years, and we can't jump through hoops that are this big. We've done it, and there's no more hoops to jump through. We can't fit through them. So you guys really need to take this into effect. This needs to be, if you can lay your head to sleep at night and look at this and this, I mean, everybody here, it's ridiculous. That you need to go back to the drawing board and come up with something else and somebody that's actually causing the problem, not us.
Hi guys, I'm Sadie Samuels. I'm a commercial lobster fisherman in Rockport. I stand with everyone, all the lobster fishermen and everyone who's spoken before me. And I know there's not all that much we can say to change minds, so I'm just gonna speak personally. My name is Sadie Samuels. I'm 30 years old. I was lucky enough to be born in Maine to a father who is a lobster fisherman. I was always on the boat. My siblings and I were on the boat since before we could walk. For as long as I can remember, I looked at these fishermen who were dedicated stewards of the sea as my role models. The most hardworking humans I know. They sacrificed their bodies, lives, and talents in order to be close to nature and to provide for their families, and they know the health of the ocean and its creatures are what make our fishery work. I wanted to be them. I got my first traps and my student license as soon as I could. I paid for college through lobstering. After school, I returned home to full-time lobster. I have put in decades of work, finances, and sweat equity into this, and I'm proud of that. One of the major reasons I chose to do this is because Maine lobstering has been one of the most environmentally friendly fisheries there is, period. That being said, I made the decision to dedicate my life to this fishery with the idea that because we were the most sustainable fishery and well-regulated fishery, I would have this for the rest of my life and be able to pass it along to my kids. Maine lobstering is one of the last honest jobs you can have. I have been out on these waters more than most scientists ever could. But all of that is being discounted because you insist on rushing the decision without proper input or peer review. I have done everything asked of me to create a sustainable business in fishery, and you are rushing to shut it all down. There are thousands more like me. The entire state of Maine economy is at stake. All I ask is that you get some unbiased scientists to come in and actually peer review this data. Thank you.
Lobstermen, with the stewards of the sea.
But being a lobsterman doesn't just mean getting up with the sun or dealing with the ocean's wrath or coming to meetings to defend something that shouldn't need defending. But being a lobsterman means being a father, mother, a brother, not just to, your own family, but to anyone in need on or off the water. And that's the way of life that I grew up respecting. 0 entanglements, 0 deaths. According to their math, I think they said we killed 30-something whales a year. Not sure how you get that from 0. But, yeah, Common Core math, maybe. But I just wanted to come up here and say that I'm really proud to see all these guys here in this room that drove miles, hours, took the time off of work, hung a pair of skins off the balcony. That's what lobstering is to me. I just hope that, the powers to be really take into consideration how many lives they're going to destroy and the way of life that they're going to make disappear, because I don't know about you guys, but I really like my way of life here in the great state of Maine.
I'm not a fisherman. My husband's not a fisherman. We're not a family of fishermen. However, our 15-year-old son loves to fish. He started shoveling bait at 10, worked his way up till he could go fishing, got a boat, fished his traps. Now he fishes full-time out of Dyers Bay, and he has a 31-foot Jim Beal boat that he fishes his own traps in Harrington. So we're pretty proud of him. We're also very proud of all the fishermen that have come to help him along the way, because again, we're not a fishing family. So he fishes on boats out of Beals Island, he fishes out of Harrington, he sells to Lobster 207 on those boats, and like I said, he's in Dyers Bay. So I'm hopeful, with all of the input from the professionals here, that you will be able to come to terms so that he can continue doing something that he really loves starting out. What I would like to say for facts, because I know we talk about poverty, but I took some time to look some numbers up. We live in Washington County. It's the poorest county in the state. And currently, we have 1,132 lobster fishing licenses in our county. Of those, 266 are student license holders. Our poverty level in Washington County for under 18 is 26.2%, and 18 to 64 years of age is 19.2% below the poverty level. So our unemployment rate currently is 7.9. And so if you take into account the 1,132 lobster fishing licenses, they can take 1, 2, 3, 4 people with them. The low number of potential impact just in the fishing industry is 1,789 people that will be out of jobs. That doesn't take into account anybody that builds traps, ships bait, any of that stuff alone. So what's really important is to look at actual numbers, and those are numbers that were provided by the Department of Maine Resources today for the trap tags, and then in fact check me on the rest because it was a search. But thank you all for taking on my son, helping him out and learn, and I think that's an important tradition that people need to take with them, is that fishermen encourage others to fish so they can teach them the correct sustainability and the heritage. Thank you.
My name's Matt Samuels. I've fished out of Rockport for about the past 40 years. I have 2 daughters that fish, so we got a little bit at stake here. I had just a few thoughts. Most scientists, probably federal judges, must have a couple $100,000 tied up in their education. What if you were told that your education was no longer valid or needed, all without being able to reasonably explain why, using non-peer-reviewed studies for the reason, and in fact making their decision without sufficient time or effort? That's what you're doing to us. We've all built our businesses into the most sustainable, environmentally friendly fishery in the U.S. But you're in such a hurry to cripple our fishery, you can't even come up with peer-reviewed data to back you. My youngest daughter, Molly, made a great point in that the science community is adamant, and they should be, that we believe them when it comes to climate change, even vaccinations, anything of the sort. But for us, they're unwilling to take the proper time and effort to be straight with us about this. We actually know a little bit about this, and in the process, you're losing credibility. NOAA has stated that right whales as a species can't survive more than one death a year. Last 20 years, zip for us. How many are due to shipping, cruise ship strikes? April 22nd, 2019, NOAA research vessel hits right whale. If we did that, we'd be dead. We'd be in prison. What is going to be allowable take for the wind turbines? It's going to be at least one list, I promise. A peer-reviewed study called Projecting Regions of North American Right Whale Habitat Suitability in the Gulf of Maine out to the year 2050, published 2021, University of California. Again, peer-reviewed. And what they state is, even now, their feed is offshore. It's not coastal, and optimum habitat and feed is moving farther offshore towards the Scotian Shelf and the Roseway Basin. Not many Maine boats there. So here's my suggestion. Let's put the same onerous limitations on shipping, cruise ships, and wind turbines that you're so willing to put on us. Just as important, just please take the time to get this right. What you propose won't save any right whales. Shipping, cruise ships will continue to kill them unabated, and you will have destroyed countless families and the soul of Maine. Thanks.
In March of 2021, the right whales, the 12 to 15,000 right whales that inhabit the DPS, the diverse population subset in the South Atlantic, were downlisted from endangered to threatened. It's time to downlist the diverse population subset of the right whale. There is no scientific data whatsoever that says there is any biological difference between the diverse population of right whales that inhabit the North Atlantic and the diverse population of right whales that inhabit the South Atlantic. The closest thing they come to is saying, well, the right whales in the diverse population subset of the North Atlantic have been isolated for a long time, and perhaps they've begun to inbreed, and that may affect their ability to populate. You know, I don't know, you'd have to maybe get the Monterey Aquarium to take their equipment and pick up a right whale from a healthy male from the South Atlantic and bring them up here, and that might help.
So if you Google entangled right whales, Google image it yourself, and you look at it, and you're like, wow, what do they do? And if you don't know this, you live anywhere out of state, you might think, oh my God, they're killing whales. But what you don't know is, these are the pictures, and I didn't sort through a bunch of pictures. I just took the pictures that were there. This is what we have to have. On every flotation that we have to have this. And it has a 600-pound weak link breakaway. Please find me an entangled right whale picture anywhere on the internet that has a 600-pound breakaway. These buoys are spliced through the whole buoy, most of them knotted spindles. There's nothing that breaks away. What happens is when the right whale's tail comes up and down, it wraps around. This acts as an anchor, so it can't get free, and it will stop it and anchor it down. But take it a step farther. You will notice that everyone in every entangled right whale you see has float rope, usually in his mouth. The reason they can get it in their mouth is because the Canadian crab gear and stuff can fish float rope all the way to the flotation devices. So on a slack tide, or even on a flood tide most of the time, the surface of the water is going to be covered with float rope. And when I say covered, this whole room, you would see that much rope floating everywhere. Because when the tide runs hard ebb, they have to have it on there to go under. So if we do this. So when the whales come up, they can get it in their mouth. We can't do that. Ours goes straight down. If a whale has his mouth open here, they go to the side. These are just facts. But we did it, and years went by, and we started to see pictures like this. And we all said to each other, I know everybody, from Cutler to Sonny, I know probably everybody in this room. And we drink beer and talk it over, and we know what. But the point is, we felt like we'd done something good. We were like, wow. Boy, I'm glad we put those breakaways in, because you see those pictures on CBS of the whale entangled? But it didn't matter. And then we're like, hold it, we have more reductions. Didn't they see those pictures? And if you Google image dead right whales, you will see a pile of dead right whales that are very obviously hit with a propeller of a boat, chopped up, dead. I fish out of Winter Harbor. We have all the fast cat ferries that go 50. We get every cruise ship in the entire world comes in there. And before any of this came around, you see a dead whale. And people would say, God, did you see that dead whale floating over by the Scudic Ridge? No, really? And then we ride over by it. You guys see a whale? You pull up to it. I mean, we're not like murderers here. And we'd be like, man, that's too bad. Look at it. And it's blatantly, obviously been hit by a boat. It's laid open like they get hit by a hatchet. And you're like, well, that's what's killing the whales. But it didn't matter. You never heard about that. Boom, more regulations. Now we got to go to smaller rope. So then we go to smaller rope, parting traps off, parting trawls off, nightmare someone over you. And we're like, okay, you see more pictures, more data comes out. Everybody shows it. It's not our rope. Our rope's not even close to that big. Our haulers wouldn't even haul that rope. It's bullshit.
My name is Annie Tselikis. I'm the Executive Director of the Maine Lobster Dealers Association, and I am the Director of Marketing and Franchise Sales for Cousins Maine Lobster. We have food trucks and restaurants all around the country. We purchase a lot of your product. The Lobster Dealers Association represents the wholesaler and supply chain side of this business, where the wharves, the processing plants, the live lobster distributors, we export the lobster, we distribute it through the supply chain. In 2016, we did an economic impact study on the supply chain alone, on the economic impact that we contribute to the state of Maine. So this is everything ex-vessel. This does not account for any of the economic impact that these guys generate. Our supply chain alone, based off of 2016 data, showed us that we contribute about $1 billion a year to the state's economy, just in the movement of the goods. If you look at that for 2021 data, where we saw the value of the product go up exponentially, you're looking at about probably $2 billion to the state of Maine. The state's GDP was about $68 billion last year, I believe. So when you look at that impact just from this industry, just on the distribution of the product alone, not accounting for the economic impact that these guys all contribute and all the ancillary businesses that the fishing sector supports, you are going to be looking at a massive economic impact to this state. I lived in Bangor for a year, and I had an attorney at one of the law firms in Bangor say to me one night at an event that Bangor is not strong unless all of the surrounding communities around it is strong. So that's Aroostook County, Washington, Hancock. When you look at the state of Maine and this industry and the impact that all of these fishing communities have to the collective economy, it's not just what we do on the coast, but when we're living in places like Jonesport or Stonington or Harpswell or Cutler, we see what we see around us. But you remove yourselves from the communities that you live in and that you're passionate about, where your kids go to school and you go to church and you do all of the things that are important to you and your community and the people around you. There's so much more about what this industry means to this state. And so I've said this before at these hearings, I cannot emphasize enough how important it is that the agency really seriously looks at the economic impact of this industry to this state. This industry is everything, especially when you get into our rural communities, especially when you get into Washington and Hancock counties. I've lived in Stonington, I've lived in Hancock. There's not a lot else going on. I mean, you hear from Phillip and you hear from Sonny talking about the dependence upon this fishery for your survival. These communities will cease to exist. You might as well just wipe Cutler off the map. Down East Maine is gone. So we have to all work together. We have to think about reasonable solutions. Ropeless fishing technology is not it. That is not going to work. That technology is not ready. It is light years away from where this industry is. You know, I know fishermen who have gone to Australia who have fished this gear have done it in a vacuum where there is no other fishing activity going on. Imagine dropping your lobster traps down with no rope connected to it. Marine Patrol can't haul it for inspection purposes, which keeps our fishery in check. And where are the scallopers supposed to go when they have no idea where what that gear is? So, I mean, from a safety perspective, from a regulatory perspective, from an enforcement perspective, some of the things that are being proposed make zero sense for the reality of this fishery, for the right whales, or for the future of our businesses, not even the lobster industry. When you look at other fisheries, the impact is massive. So I would just implore the agency to continue to think about the economic and community survival of this business. I love you all very much. I love this industry, and I want to continue being able to do all of the things that we do, purchasing this product, distributing around the world. I've been so fortunate to be able to have the career that I've had in this industry. I remember being in South Korea one day, and I posted a picture on Instagram, and Kenny Lemoyne saw it. And Kenny sent me a message, and he goes, "Kid, where the hell are you?" And I'm like, "I'm in South Korea." "What are you doing there?" "I am marketing Maine lobster." And that is an incredible thing, to have a fisherman who I respect so much from Swans Island, who sees a photo of me in South Korea promoting Maine lobster. You guys are impacting a distribution of a product globally, and it is so important for us. We give consumers incredible protein, incredible products. Let's all continue to do that. Let's find a way to do it responsibly for this industry and for the marine mammals that we need to responsibly protect. But let's do it in a reasonable way.
We at Commerce Corporation actually invented fishing line that won't entangle whales. Your way of life can be preserved if you listen to what I've got to say and what my corporation is going to do for you. And
Thank you very much, everybody. I'm David Capitosto, the guy with the unpronounceable last name. I represent a company called Ropeless Systems. We started the company a couple of years ago with a basic thought, and that was that our neighbors, that's you, the fishermen, were going to wake up one morning and someone was going to tell them they couldn't fish. So we created a company with a group of people that are experts in acoustics and deploying and recovering items to the seafloor. So we've been working on ropeless fishing systems, which I know that you are not in favor of. However, life is not fair. Sometimes we wake up and people have done things that are outside of our control. And you and some of the folks at NOAA are having to deal with that. So were that to happen, were you to wake up one morning and someone was going to tell you you're going to have to use ropeless fishing gear, I have recommendations for the NOAA team. Right now, what it looks like is you're going to get lines with a fixed buoys that are going to get released, and you're not going to have a ropeless gear. You're going to have a line and a buoy at the top. Someone's going to require you to report every position for every piece of gear that you put on the seafloor by GPS marking. It's going to go up to a cloud. It's going to go to a cloud, and then it's going to go to government officials or other regulator folks who are going to see where all of your gear is from their couch. And they're from the government, and they promise never to lose the gear or abuse the gear. And that may or may not happen, even with the best of their intentions. Our technology would allow you to fish like you fish now. This technology allows you to see what's on the seafloor. It's hands-free. It's on your chart plotter. You can initiate your gear from the chart plotter. This is not in the ropeless roadmap. We've been presenting this gear over the course of a couple of years at the Ropeless Consortium. It's not getting attention. It is a fisherman-centric solution, not a regulator-centric solution. So we'd ask NOAA to take a good look at this. This is a Maine-based company that's working on a fisherman-centric Maine-based solution, should it comes to that. Our recovery rate is excellent. We use an airbag system. We use near 100%. Yeah. 70%. Yeah. It's not, yes, it's not 70%.
$150 tryouts, we're going to lose all time.
I understand. I understand your concerns. Yeah, we've done our deployment from Canada and the U.S. and NOAA is nearly 100%. Okay, it's an airbag system. It will come to the surface. It has hundreds of pounds of buoyancy. I can answer those questions, but I'm directing my comments to NOAA, and that is please consider real-time gear location on the seafloor and not GPS marking. Thank you.
This is something completely different that I'm going to say. As I said, my name is Peter Stein. I won't go into my pedigree, except to say that I have a lifetime's worth of experience in Department of Defense level ocean system engineering. I understand the state of the art. I understand the state of the possible. I have, with a bunch of other people, and it's been vetted, have developed a plan to save both the iconic Maine lobstering industry and the right whale. Where's Billy Bob? Is he still here? Here's your plan. The plan does not include lawsuits, nor does it include endless modeling of the probability of biological removal. It gets rid of all of these, and sorry, I'll use the word, ridiculous mitigation measures. I do not understand how weak links made it off the whiteboard. I don't. It's dangerous. The plan that I have goes well beyond ropeless, gear, and on-demand fishing. That is not going to be robust enough for the Maine lobstering industry. It's not. The plan does include outfitting lobster boats with what I would call a powered grapple or a small underwater drone, programmed to retrieve a trawl outfitted with a small acoustic beacon. What's in the water doesn't have any mechanical components. Don't laugh at me, please. I'll talk to you endlessly about it later. Don't worry, I talk forever if you let me go. Okay, hold on, guys. Come on, please. I accept listening to all of you. It does eventually include the option to be paid. Yeah, I do. To include the option to add ocean sensors to a trawl with the goal of predicting lobster migration in the face of climate change.
We already know how to do that.
Measuring the environmental impacts of wind farms, protecting whales from ship strikes. How about we do that? Improving national and world security, it comes down to that. All by providing additional income to the lobstermen. What do we do? This plan envisions rapid and well-funded ocean system development, the likes the fishing industry has never seen. The likes of which have been reserved to the Department of Defense, the oil and gas industry, and now the offshore wind farm industry. How about you guys? It is only through this level of system development that we will solve the issues associated with climate farms, wind farms, and whale entanglement, while also minimizing the changes to Maine's precious lobstering heritage. I care. I really do care. What do we need to do to implement this plan, to raise the required funds, to own this technology for Maine, to solve the problem within a few years? Well, this is where I believe the opportunity lies, because we are the iconic Maine lobstering industry. And if we band together and we work together, we can solve the problem.
We've been doing it for fucking decades with no problem.
My name's Kris Koerber. I'm a lobsterman from Harpswell, Maine. This season marks my 4th running my own boat. I have a little girl, Iva, and a son, Eli, and I hope that they will have the option to pursue lobstering if they so desire. The commercial lobster industry is nothing more than collateral damage, all in the pursuit of saving the whales. But if the real goal is to protect and ultimately grow the population of the North Atlantic right whale, then I propose you consider the following. Reassess the risk reduction and impact of the 600-pound breakaway at buoys. Invest in unbiased, peer-reviewed scientific research necessary to know where the whales are in order to inform adaptive management. This could include additional acoustic buoys along the hypothetical migration routes of the whales. Create standard operating procedures to move the buoys as necessary. Create a series of on-call disentanglement teams along the coast of Maine made up of fishermen, federal officials, and state officials. And do a better job of organizing opportunities for public input. One in-person meeting in Portland with 1 week notice is not good enough. The current trajectory of regulations being discussed will ultimately forever alter and potentially destroy one of the most sustainable fisheries in the world. and in doing so does not necessitate the survival of the North Atlantic right whale. So before shooting off the hip to impose changes that may not help these whales, we instead should be working together to create a game plan for increasing our knowledge around the pattern of the species and assessing the real risk to their population.
Pretty humbling to be here and be a part of this group here today. My name is Curt Brown. I'm a lobsterman out of Cape Elizabeth, Maine, and a marine biologist at Ready Seafood Company based in Portland and Saco. I've spent the last 4 weeks since the Seafood Watch announcement traveling the country back and forth 3 times, answering questions from all of our customers. And the answer goes pretty simply when we talk about 2 very simple numbers that you've heard already tonight. When we explain those numbers 0 and 0 to our customer base, the message is extremely effective and people understand it right off the bat. I'm back here in Maine. I'm tired of answering questions, so my comments tonight are mostly in the form of questions that I want to ask NOAA, and I know the answers, so you'll hear them. And these are all questions directed at NOAA. Were you required to use a worst-case scenario in each parameter of your risk model? No. Were you required to use the years 2010 through 2018, the lowest years on record to estimate birthing rates of right whales? No. What if you included 2009, the highest birthing year on record, or 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022? Probably a good chance we're not here tonight. Were you required to allocate 50% of the risk to the United States and 50% to Canada when the data does not support that allocation? No. Were you required to assume that there is zero natural mortality for right whales, and as a result, all of the, quote, cryptic mortality is human-caused, and 70% of that goes to fishing and only 30% to ship strikes, despite the fact that the data does not support this? Again, no. Were you required to use a model that cannot accommodate whale mortality data any more recent than 2019? Again, no. I will end with your own words from the take reduction team a few weeks ago. Quote, "We are limited by our model. We are always a little bit behind the data that we have. The most recent year we have is actually 2019, unfortunately. So we have to use that data until we get updated data. My recommendation is simple and scientific. Fix the damn model." I look around this room and want to emphasize that the men and women who took the time to be here tonight and have to get up at the ass crack of dawn tomorrow morning deserve better than this. My wife, my son, my daughter deserve better than this, and the most iconic and sustainable fishery in this country deserves better than this. Thank you.
I apologize, I was supposed to read my son's testimony too. This is Carter Faulkingham. He's 9 years old. I'm just a kid that hopes my dad doesn't lose his job and that I can go lobstering when I'm older. Lobster fishing to me means I get a chance to help my dad, and it's fun to do it. I mean, I just like baiting bags. My little sister passing fish to me picking up the bags and stuffing the fish in. Carter, 9 years old, 6th generation fisherman.
I'm Scott Rocknak. I'm a boatyard owner from Rockport, and I'm also running for Maine State Senate District 12, that's Knox County. I think one of the issues I have here tonight, after watching the presentation, is the model. It's being peer reviewed, but it really should be being peer reviewed, at least a component of it, by everyone here as an aspect of the model. The model to me seems like something from a 1950s horror movie of a blob moving over the coast. And if this model is successful, then it's going to be 2 years to flatten the lobsterman. It's another model that probably doesn't work like other models we've seen recently. So in Knox County, we are so reliant on the lobsterman and the industry, the infrastructure and everything else that falls behind it. It's going to devastate the community. We have North Haven, Vinyl Haven, Matinicus, Matinic, even LaSalle, Friendship, all the way up to Camden, inboard to several towns, Warren, Hope, Appleton, where lobstermen live. It's going to slowly decimate boatyards. Like the boatyard I'm in is mostly recreational, but other boatyards are not. So my recommendation is for you, and thank you for coming, is to re-examine the model, or perhaps make it more public where it can be peer reviewed by another component compiled by people from this industry.
I'm kind of just average in a lot of ways. I'm 50 years old. I think the average age in our industry is about 56, so I'm a little below average. I have 5 kids. I'm a little above average on that side. But looking at that, I've got about 34,000 hours on my boat. It took me 7 years to get my own boat, so that's just on my own hour meters. If you multiply that by 5,000, give or take, full-time lobstering, that's 170 million hours in the Gulf of Maine. I think if you took 100 scientists and they worked 24 hours a day, 356 days a year, you'd be under 1 million hours. So I think that's part of what this industry is feeling affected by, is just the amount of experience and practical knowledge over the years. And every law that we've brought to bear on our own industry so successfully has been through practical experience. And nothing we're talking about here is practical. I have 4 of my kids have lobster licenses. I can point to each of our laws and say, this is why we did this. I can't do that with what we're doing at this point. Good example is the idea that no whale can die naturally. How is that possible? That's what the model has built in at this point. So any whales that are found and the death is unknown, it's attributed 50-50 between the US and Canada, and then trap fisheries get 70% of that. So the PBR is 0.7. My math, which isn't that great, and I had to go through several tutorial sessions to figure it out, but just through 350 whales that live 55 years, the math that NOAA puts on your website, that means you would lose over 6 whales a year just a natural death, even if they live to a complete lifespan. And so we're responsible for 1.3 of those deaths, which is above the PBR. This is fixed. We can never meet this. It's impossible. And so we come to a scoping session and they say, what should you do? Fix the model.
My name is Ian Lussier. I'm a lobsterman from Owl's Head. Thank you for having this meeting tonight. First, I want to say that one of the proposals I've seen is shutting down Area C, D, and E in October, November, December, and January. I want you to know that that would be at least 60% of my income and a lot of people in this room. That'd be a very serious thing. Second, I want to touch on what was brought up earlier about the 600-pound weak links. In 1997, we went to sinking ground line and 600-pound weak links on the buoys, which at that time is what the scientists said will work. And it did work for Maine, because we did it. I think now they're gone. I don't understand that. I would like to see more on that. If I'm a whale and I'm swimming along and I hit a rope, I've got big flippers, everything else, and it gets stuck and it starts sliding, it goes all the way to the buoy and it hits the buoy. Now there's no weak link. You got a weak link in the middle. It's going to break in the middle, and there goes a whale with 40 fathoms of rope on it. We got rid of them this round. Let's bring them back the next round and get our 40% more risk reduction out of the weak links we already had. The other idea I have is enforce what you put in place in 1997. All the pictures we've seen tonight, all the pictures I've seen, it's big rope. There's no breakaways. And I'll tell you where that rope is. It's in Canada, and it's in Area 3. Enforce what you've already got, and it will work. Thank you.
Gary Hatch. I'm from Owl's Head. Been part of the management and of the state of Maine and nationally for over 60 years. Did over 30 years at National Marine Fisheries, 17 years on the council. So I know what's going on here, and it's a shame. I agree that they've been tasked with a reduction on the whale takes and kills. However, the state of Maine isn't the problem. We've already addressed the problem, and we've done a very good job for over 20 years. So that's something you need to take back. And we need to look at several things that are evident. One is the ship strikes. Number two, you said, well, south of Long Island, no big deal because there's not much trap gear. However, I can speak of within a year, 2 whales that were killed by ship strikes. So if you've got 0 in Maine, but you're pouncing on us, but you're just letting them get away with two kills in Florida, you're not doing anybody any justice, and you're not doing your job. That's the thing that really bothers me is I know how much time and effort I've put into my life and lost as a family man for running up and down the East Coast to all these meetings, and you slap me in the face. You're not doing your job. You're not even coming up with what needs to be done. You're just jumping on us, and that's why it's so evident, because as one of the last Area 3 lobstermen, I go dragging now, and I was specifically in the closed area that you closed off the Gulf of Maine. And I never saw a whale in 2 months, but I did see Area 3, which the Newton boys were all there. There was over 7 boats there, right up against the 600 line, fishing, no breakaways, nothing. And that's the appalling thing to me is the Area 3, you've got it right in this document, the Jonah crabs and the offshore lobstermen are the ones that need to be taken care of. And I know I'm not supposed to say this, but in my professional part of National Marine Fisheries, you need to bring this rope that's in the warehouse in Silver Springs up so we can look at it, so then we can tell you, okay, hey, it's all that green 5/8. I know who buys it by the truckload, and I know who it belongs to, and that's the people you need to go after, not us. These guys have done their job. Leave them alone.
So it's 9:30 right now. I've got a lot more names on the list, but I don't think we're going to have time to take more names. They need to close the building at 10.
Janet says you can close the place.
Let them speak. Let them speak. Let them speak.
It's not up to her. It's not up to her. It's also.
Hello, my name is Seth Walker. I lobster scallop fish out of Harpswell. I've been fishing since I graduated high school in 1994. I've fished in state waters. I have an Area 1 federal lobster permit, and in the late 90s, early 2000s, I made 20 10-day trips in Area 3 on a Shaftmaster lobster boat for Little Bay Lobster Company out of New Hampshire. That's 200 days in Area 3 and thousands of days in Area 1, and I've never seen a right whale. I have a 21-year-old son with a commercial lobster license, a 15-year-old daughter with a student lobster license, and I'm worried they aren't going to be able to have a lobster industry to participate in. These restrictions that are being proposed are crazy. You're talking big trap reductions and reducing end lines for a problem we aren't causing. Back in the early 2000s, when we went to 1,200 traps, there had been talk then about us going to 400 traps, and now we're hearing 400 traps again. Maybe that's a coincidence. I feel NOAA should have their people actually spend time on lobster boats and see how we actually fish. Ropeless buoys and grappling fishing isn't going to work. We are side by side of each other. If we drop a grapple on bottom to grapple your gear back, you are going to pick up a pile of other guys. Ropeless fishing, we keep hearing, we'll have real-time data so we can see where other people's gear is, but that's not going to be accurate information because the gear drifts in the tide until it hits bottom. Tide in some areas drift differently than you think, so without having buoys, we won't be able to set gear without setting over people. It keeps being said that you want to save the right whales, but wind farms are able to harass or hurt 20 right whales. Why don't you use a resource available to you? All us lobstermen, we are on the ocean every day. I'm sure guys would rather help track right whales instead of not being able to fish. And why don't you track the right whales? They've had success tracking right whales to the south of us. I get they don't have a dorsal fin for the tracker, and the suction type trackers fall off in a couple weeks. But if you know where the right whales are, it should be easy to find the whale and put a new tracker on. I think we can still have 800 traps and 2 end lines without hurting right whales. If we hurt them all the time, why don't you see entangled whales on the news all the time? There are all kinds of articles out talking about how the right whale has migrated away from the Gulf of Maine because their food isn't here. I also read how in 2017 in the Gulf of St. Lawrence, the ice came in early and trapped the right whales, and when they found the dead whales, they had bruises on their heads from hitting the ice trying to breathe. Also, I never hear anyone talk about mortality. They do die from natural reasons. I don't believe NOAA is generally worried about lobstermen, or we would have gotten the tool the take reduction team uses before September 26, the day before the first NOAA scoping meeting. Pat received the email while we were at the Lobster Advisory Council meeting. If federal waters are shut down during peak lobster fishing and Maine boats can't go in the gray zone, Canada is still going to be there. I think it's not right we don't receive credit for everything we have done, or it's not taken into account guys that take their traps out of the water in the fall and don't set again till June.
Hi, I'm James from Peaks Island, Maine, and I'm not a lobster fisherman, but I was a sternman for a couple of years with my father-in-law, who was a lobsterman for 75 years. I've always been very impressed by how the Maine lobsterman knows how to take care of the fishery. What you've done is just incredible, and I get so frustrated when I hear government agencies that want to do something that has no scientific fact, like we're here for the whales. We all know we're not here for the whales because it's windmills that they're looking at. And I have to say, I was sitting in my house a couple weeks ago and an American bald eagle came and landed in my front yard. And I thought, there was a rule getting rid of DDT that worked and it saved the eagle. I'm 66, I didn't think I'd ever see a bald eagle my entire life. About a week ago, I was in South Portland, and there was a flock of Canadian geese, about 12 of them that were walking across Broadway Street. Everybody stopped. There was no regulation saying you have to stop for the ducks crossing the road. Mainers are smart and sensible, and I just hope and pray that the government will realize that it's ship strikes that are the whale's biggest problem. It's not lobster gear. And so, and if this doesn't happen, I'm just afraid we're gonna have a revolution. Thank you.
I feel like a puppet. I've been lobstering 40 years. Started on my own, grew up in a town where, fishing was what everybody did, so I liked it. I wanted to get into it. I'm done with all your regulations, with all your bullshit. It's stupid, and I'm not doing no more. So whatever you come up with on this next plan, forget it, because I ain't doing it. And you can tell all these wardens what my name is, and they can come down and lug me off, because I'm not giving up what I've done my whole life for people like you. And I don't know how, when you go home at night, you can even look at yourself in the mirror, knowing that you're sitting here listening to people like me. I got 2 little kids too. How would you like to go home, tell your little kids, gee buddy, I don't really want you to help me today because you really don't have a future at this, but how do you think that feels? 2 boys that want to be like their father, but I'm pushing them away to not go with me for a day because I don't want them to get to love it any more than they do. But you sit here with a blank look on your face and think, oh, that's fine, because people like you don't understand normal thinking. Because if you did, you probably wouldn't be sitting in that chair right now. You'd be going to do something else instead of ruining people's lives, because you have no proof of anything that we've done, and all we've done is bend over backwards for you. It's just ridiculous, and I'm not doing one more thing.
My name is Julie Eaton, and I'm a lobster boat captain from Stonington. Thank you. In '87, I got hit by a cement truck headed to work. And the lobster industry, there are people in this room from Vinyl Haven who saved my life. Fishing is everything for us. I live on an island without traffic lights, without McDonald's, without Walmart. We have nothing else but fishing. You're taking this away from me, my crew, the guys at the boatyard that fix my boat, the restaurant owners that feed me. You're taking it away from my grocery store, my mechanic, from everybody, from the supply people, from my trap builder. Don't do this. Mess with the Maine lobsterman and you're gonna see what happens, because we won't let you destroy our communities. Thank you.
So I appreciate, having the politicians here tonight, but I don't appreciate them getting a chance to speak first, because this whole point of this was to have the fishermen give you ideas. So instead, we get every heartfelt message, because this is their one chance, this is their one opportunity to be heard, right? These guys just want to go to work, plain and simple. They get up, it's a pretty routine thing, they want to go to work, and that's it. You need people on the boats, you need to speak to the people that really genuinely care, and see it and do it and gather that data before you can make them change everything. And if you are gonna change it, where's the incentives for these guys? It's insulting. They're doing all of this and they're not getting the recognition for what they have done already.
This winter, when we were closed out of our area, shafty boats definitely slid in on a lot of our bottom just above the 600 line, which was illegal on a number of fronts. And also nothing was done. And in your graphs, you have us grouped together as Gulf of Maine fisheries. Well, where the hell is Shafty on this? All the gear is either coming from the Canadian snow crabs or down in Shaftmaster territory. That's where it is. That's the gear they're using. Those are requirements. What's their new requirement? They have to add 5 traps to an already 45, pot trawl. And that's nothing for them. It's nothing. For us, it's a lot. We're gonna lose a lot. And I'll tell you this, I've never wanted to do anything else. I've pushed my son away from this because I don't see a long-term solution. I think that we're gonna be steamrolled. There hasn't been a lot of talk about the windmills tonight. I think that's unfortunate because we know that the money's coming from the windmills. You wanna trace it down, you can do your own research. It's all there, it's public data. And they're gonna be allowed a certain amount of takes. The first word, and I got a lot of stuff I was gonna say. I'm just so pissed off at all this stuff. I'm sorry, but if they take away any more, if you take us down to 400 or 300 pots with a seasonal closure, I'm probably just gonna give it up. Like the first federal boat that comes to look at my gear, I'm gonna set it on autopilot and let it crash and jump and go, because I think, frankly, I'd stand a better chance getting home in the life raft than I would fighting a bunch of people who aren't even using the real science that you say you're supporting. You've got all this data and you say, oh, well, it's a peer-reviewed paper. Well, maybe, but if you cherry pick the data off that paper to suit your initiative, how is that actually using peer-reviewed data? That's using cherry-picked data. That's not peer-reviewed. So This guy here, the electronic stuff, it's not gonna work in our waters. It may work in a vacuum where everything's clean and tidy and nobody's trying to hurry and get things done, but if you wanna come offshore in January, out in the middle, we'll go down in a really shitty day and see how you like it at that point, with water all over the deck, trying to pack something in and make it work in an efficient manner. It's not gonna work. So we need an end line count. So I'm asking the DMR to respond to that. We need an end line count. And I, for one, would volunteer that information immediately if I knew that was gonna help our cause. So if you all get an email from somebody asking about your gear configurations, I think it would behoove us to give up that information.
My name's Rebekah Hodgson. Some of you know my face. I am a mother of 2 young kids. They are home without me tonight because I'm here for my industry and my fellow fishermen. I am a United States Coast Guard wife. I wear many hats. I have enough of the government in my house. I grew up at the age of 8 fishing on a 10-foot skiff my father, John Cox Jr., built himself, hauling traps by hand. It made me the person I am today. All these people here today, it's their life. It's what they eat, sleep, and breathe. You Marine wardens, if we're not here, your job's not here. The DMR is not here. We are the face. We are the active people, and I encourage you, visit each town. The guys in my port couldn't come tonight, 5 hours away, and you understand it. You have to go fish. They had to go fish today to support their families and their livelihoods. They couldn't be here. You should be up and down the coast in each local community and government and sit there and listen to these guys. I know it's sob story after sob story, but it truly is a sob story. My kids are ages 4 and 2. And if they don't have a future in this fishery, they say, Mama, let's go haul our traps. They're my motivation. They get me out on the boat to do what I do. If it wasn't for my father, I am a 3rd generation commercial Maine lobsterman. What if somebody who didn't have a clue what they knew about your job showed up and said, your job's on the chopping block. Yeah, I don't know what you do, but whatever. That's what we're up against. You have no idea what we do. Day to day, the crack of dawn, we see what is out there. We're not killing whales, 0. Like it's been said before, and I know you're tired, but please put a plug in this ear and keep it here instead of going out this way. We're not killing whales, 0 is 0. And I want my kids, just like each and every single one of you, Marine wardens, do you want your kids to follow in your footsteps and be a Marine warden? DMR, do you want your kids to, follow in your steps in your respective path? That's what we want. I know we're tired, but I thank you for everyone who's came today and just listened. I go to bed every single night worrying, am I gonna be able to next season, because I'm a mother and a military wife, am I gonna be able to do that next year? Is that the last time I just hauled my trap? I have a college degree. I'm what you call an educated idiot, standing here before you. I have a business degree. I have something to fall back on because my grandmother, Constance Elizabeth Wallace, told me, Rebekah, you need to go to college and get a college education just in case, you fall, you get hurt. I listened to her. I didn't want to do it, but I did. Now I'm in debt up to my eyeballs for a degree. But fishing, you can't go to college and get that education. You learn it from the people who come before you. And we're setting the example. I'm 33 years old, and I'm setting the example for my children, just like each and every single one of you out there are doing today. And we're fighting, and we're not gonna give up. So I hope tonight, when you go to bed, you take all of our faces, and I hope they haunt your dreams. I really do. Before God in my country, I'm a lobster fisherman, and if you take that away from me, please go somewhere else in the world, because you're not an American. So thank you, enough rambling, but I drove down today because I wanted to look the people in the eye who are threatening my livelihood and threatening the 5,000 brothers and sisters I have there out there on the sea. Because I can't sleep at night. So I hope you can't too.
It's a long night. I gotta get up at 3:30 to go home tomorrow. It is what it is. Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. I hope and pray that you listen to me, the fishermen here, all the people here in support of fishermen, and that you genuinely take what we know, feel, and say into great consideration throughout this process. My name is Brennan Strong. I'm 24 years old. I'm a business owner, lobsterman, and nature lover from Yarmouth, Maine. I've had a lobster license since I was 10 years old. I was not born into it. I used to hang out at the boatyard near my parents' house day after day because it interests me. And it turns out I was searching for something. My ancestors in Ireland for hundreds of years built boats and fished commercially. My parents here do not. It's not a coincidence that I found it again. I found an occupation that soothes my soul, a sustainable occupation, an honorable occupation, a unique and awesome occupation where hard work and honesty are rewarded. I used to hang out at that boatyard so much that eventually people there said, "What are you doing here?" Might as well teach them stuff and take them lobstering. They saw my interest and potential, and very nice people gave me a 13-foot wooden skiff and offered to sponsor me in the lobstering apprentice program. I swung traps on the sterns of various boats and learned more than I ever thought I could. I learned the importance of throwing back shorts, eggers, and V-tails, firsthand seeing what sustainable fishing looks like. I learned responsibility, seamanship, math, and mechanical skills that I never could have learned in school. I learned the value of hard work. I'm thankful for all of that. Today I still have that 13-foot wooden skiff. I sand and paint it every year. I also now have a commercial lobster license, federal permit, 36-foot boat, and 800 traps. This so-called 90% risk reduction you are asking us to comment on will destroy all of that. It will destroy my life and my business. It will destroy the lives and businesses of thousands of good people up and down the coast. It will destroy the coast itself, and it will not even save the right whale. I cannot afford any more cuts or regulations. I can barely keep up with my boat payment as it is now. That's with fishing 800 traps year-round. The regulations in place now are clearly beyond sufficient because Maine lobster gear has never killed a right whale. The Maine Department of Marine Resources, Maine Lobstermen's Association, along with hundreds if not thousands of other trustworthy stakeholders, completely dismantled and proved wrong the biological opinion that all of this is based on through the public comment process. The biological opinion was still published as it was written and is being used as the baseline for all of these ludicrous regulations. That's a disgrace. How do the feds, environmental groups, and windmill companies sleep at night? How do they look in the mirror knowing that they're lying to all of us and the world? Any more regulations for Maine lobstermen beyond what's currently in place would not be to help whales. It would be a kill shot to the lobster industry to make way for offshore wind, a subsidized fantasy that will kill more whales and sea life than lobstering ever has or ever will. To uproot our industry for big money and big lies would be a tragedy beyond my comprehension. Please do the right thing, reverse these unnecessary regulations, and let us fish and save Maine lobstermen. Thank you.
Thanks everyone for coming. We are being asked to leave now.
What happens to the people who didn't get to speak? Are you going to hold another session?
We have been listening.
I got here on time. I put my name on a list. I want to speak.
Keep an eye on our website. And if there are any changes in the comment period, it'll be indicated on our website.